Hello dear friend, you are welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to show how to identify different types of MCBs and where they can be used for optimum protection. MCBs are typically rated from 1 amp up to 125 amp, and they are mostly used for protecting domestic, commercial, and industrial installations. The different types of MCBs available are the Type B, Type C, Type D, Type K, and Type Z. All right, so how can we identify each of these types and how do we know which one is appropriate for a particular application? So first of all, let's look at how to identify a particular type of circuit breaker. When you take a look at a breaker like this is a 16 amp breaker. But you can see that before the rating, there is a prefix, that is the letter C, before the 16 amp rating. And so this letter C here identifies this particular MCB as a type C MCB. This is a different type of miniature circuit breaker. When you look again, before the 63 amp rating, there is the letter D as a prefix to the 63 amp rating. And so this letter D before the rating identifies this particular circuit breaker as a type D circuit breaker. So anytime you pick a breaker, you see a prefix before the rating. That prefix tells you the type of breaker that it is. For example, if you look on the screen, I have different types of circuit breakers. And so the letters placed or the prefixes before the rating of the miniature circuit breaker is actually what shows the type of circuit breaker that it is. There is another rating here. This shows the maximum amount of short circuit current that this breaker can withstand. All right, so circuit breakers also get spoiled. They can damage as a result of high short circuit current. So in this case, if the short circuit current is more than the rated capacity that the breaker can withstand, that short circuit current can easily damage your breaker. All right, so when you look at this other circuit breaker, you realize that the maximum short circuit current is 10,000 amps. And so you realize that between these two circuit breakers, this particular one can withstand higher amounts of fault current than this one. So for instance, if a short circuit happens in a circuit, this breaker is likely to break down sooner than this one. All right, so now let's go to look at how to identify these various types of circuit breakers. So this table shows the various types of breakers and their tripping characteristics and where they can be used for optimum protection. So in the first column, we have the type of MCB. Then in the second column, we have tripping current. Then in the third column, we have the time frame within which this amount of current will cause the breaker to trip. And then in the last column, we have where each type can be used. So the first type I'm talking about is the type B. And the type B, when you look at its characteristics, it requires a current of 3 to 5 times the full load current of the breaker to trip. When you look at the time frame column, when 3 to 5 times the full load current is applied, this breaker should operate within 0.04 seconds and then 13 seconds. And these are very good for use in domestic installations. So, but then we use type C also in domestic installation. Let's look at the characteristics of the type C. So type C requires a current of 5 to 10 times the full load current or the rated current of the MCB to operate. And at this current, it should operate within a time limit of 0.04 seconds and then 5 seconds. So between 0.04 seconds and 5 seconds, if this amount of current flows through the circuit, it should be able to trip within this time frame. It is also used in commercial and industrial installations. Then we move to type D. Type D requires a current of 10 to 20 times the full load current. The full load current is the rated current of the circuit breaker. And so type D requires 10 to 20 times the full load current to operate within 0.04 to 3 seconds. So when this amount of current flows through a type D circuit breaker, the breaker should trip within 0.04 and then 3 seconds. And these are used for loads that require high starting current, like induction motors. Then we move to type K. The type K miniature circuit breaker will operate within less than zero point 0.1 seconds if a current of 8 to 12 times the full load current is applied to the breaker. So a type K miniature circuit breaker should break within less than zero point 0.1 seconds when a current of 8 to 12 times the full load current passes through the circuit breaker. Then the last type we have here is the type Z or type Z. So the type Z miniature circuit breaker requires a current of 2 to 3 times the full load current rating of the breaker to operate or to break within less than zero point 0.1 seconds. So when a current of 2 to 3 times the full load rating of the circuit breaker passes through it should operate within less than zero point 0.1 seconds. And so it is used for protecting highly sensitive devices such as semiconductor devices. Now, one important thing we should know when it comes to the tripping characteristics of the various types of circuit breakers is that the amount of current shown in the table is the amount of current required to cause instantaneous tripping of the breaker. Instantaneous tripping means the amount of current that will cause the breaker to operate immediately or to operate within a few seconds. It does not really mean that the breaker will only trip when so much current flows through it. No, that is not it. These classifications has to do with what amount of current would trip that particular breaker within a given amount of time in milliseconds to a few seconds. In actual fact, the IEC standards say that a type B, C, or D circuit breaker that has a rating below 63 amps should be able to trip in less than an hour when 1.45 times the rated current flows through that miniature circuit breaker. You may refer to IEC 600504442. And the only fault current that should not cause the breaker to break or to trip within 1 hour is when a current of 1.13 times the rated current is applied to the breaker for breakers that are rated below 63 amps. And for breakers that are rated above 63 amps, when a current of 1.13 times the rated current of the MCB passes through the breaker, it should not trip within 2 hours. So what it is simply saying is that if we take a 20 amp circuit breaker for instance, and then a current of 1.13 times 20 amp flows through that 20 amps breaker, the breaker should not trip within 1 hour. So eventually the breaker is going to trip, but it will take some time before it trips. It does not mean that 60 amps should flow through that breaker before it trips. Please, if you have learned something new from watching this video, kindly like, share with others to also benefit, and leave your comments at the comment section. In my next video, I'll be talking about types of RCDs. And so if you have not yet subscribed, please kindly do so. Thank you very much for watching and stay connected.